type. Look, there are countless moments that make up the story of Australia, but every now and then there's a special moment, a defining moment. I'm Mikey Robbins and I'm here at the National Museum of Australia to check out their project, Defining Moments in Australian History. Look, what we're going to do is we're going to go behind the scenes. We're going to check out some objects that tell the stories about these moments, about who we are. Now this I recognise. It is of course a cannon off the Bark Endeavour, but that's as much as I know. So let's bring in an expert. Michelle Hetherington, please come in. You're a senior curator here at the museum. Why is this one of our defining moments?
Okay, so this cannon represents the moment at which Cook's voyage, Captain Cook's voyage up the east coast of Australia, nearly came to a terrifying end. So the cannon, which had sailed with him from England in 1768 all the way around the world, they'd reached the east coast of Australia. He'd been doing a fantastic job of mapping it, and then on the night of June the 10th, 1770, they hit the reef.
They hit the reef. So this was jettisoned over the side.
Yes, along with the other five.
And a fair amount of ballast as well.
Huge amount of ballast, and everything that was in the way of the ballast.
Yeah.
You know, you get a real sense of how desperate the situation was when you find out that they jettisoned barrels of water, food, you know, anything that was in the way, over it went.
Because Cook was, apart from a navigator, an amazing leader of men.
He was a fantastic captain. He kept his men, I think he treated them fairly.
Disciplined.
They all seemed to love him, but he also didn't put up with too much nonsense, I suspect.
Because that period of time, when a ship wrecked, the chances were you weren't going to live.
The chances were that you would definitely die. Sailors were not taught to swim. There was sort of,
I found that amazing.
Yeah. Get it over and done with quickly. If you're going down, go down quickly. And of course, the other thing that used to happen was the ship hits a reef, the crew mutiny, open the stores of rum and get absolutely drunk. So, but that didn't happen.
The voyage of Endeavour was a scientific voyage, but it was a naval vessel. Were these cannons ever used in anger?
Very good question. I've gone through the journals, and the only time that they were seriously used for self-defence was in the circumnavigation of New Zealand, because the Maori defended their country very strongly.
Yes, because Cook's interaction with the Maori was very different to what happened in Australia.
Indeed, he was very lucky to have on board a man called Tupaia, who he'd picked up in Tahiti. Tupaia was a priest, and he'd said, I want to go to England, I want to meet this king of yours. And the language that he spoke was the same as was being spoken in New Zealand 900 years after the first settlers had gone across. It's extraordinary. And they looked upon him almost like the second coming.
Wow.
He was a man who was, the man who knew about their religion and could speak to them. And they thought the boat was Tupaia's boat, not Cook's.
Now, when you grow up as an Australian school kid, it's Captain Cook, the Great Explorer. Is it the same in New Zealand and the same in Canada?
Well, I should think that the New Zealanders have a very strong attachment to the Cook story. I mean, he spent such a long time travelling around New Zealand. His map of New Zealand was remarkably good. And so, of course, the New Zealanders are strongly involved in the story of Cook. And, of course, one of their great scholars, John Court Beaglehall, was responsible for transcribing the log, the Cook log, and making it available effectively for the rest of us to read.
But what's he famous in England?
Well, that's really interesting. I wrote a paper that was about Cook and lent it to a friend of mine who's English, and to read, to check, and he said, who's Captain Cook?
Own homeland, he's not considered...
Well, he's one of many.
He's one of many.
One of very many. Whereas for Australia, of course, he is the one who maps the east coast. But of course, it's because he's got banks on board that Australia ends up being chosen as the site for settlement.
Michelle, can I ask you, how do you feel personally when you look on this cannon?
When I look at this cannon, the hair goes up on the back of my neck.
Really?
It's it's the tangible evidence of the Cook voyage. When I look at this cannon, I look at the British imperial system.
Of course.
I look at Cook as an able navigator who managed to survive an extraordinarily dangerous moment. I look at the fact that 200 years after the cannon was jettisoned, people wanted to retrieve it. And that fact that, in one moment you leap the 200 years from the terrifying moment when it was jettisoned to the amazingly exciting moment where people used the historical record to find and retrieve something which we can now look at today. It's on display for everybody to see, and it speaks. The past speaks to us.
Thanks for watching, but it doesn't end here. We want you to join the conversation. Go to the National Museum of Australia's website, that's nma.gov.au, and let us know what you think are the defining moments in Australian history. We'd love to hear your opinion. Once again, thanks for watching. See you soon.